everybody, it's Bailey again with Recaptured Values, and today I'm going to be doing a very requested video, and that is how to sew high-waist bummy shorts. So stay tuned and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, what we've got here, in order to do your bummies, of course, you're going to need fabric. I'm going to be using a double-brushed polyester spandex fabric, also referred to as DBP. Double-brushed poly is what it is, but it is spandex, so it's stretchy. With bummies, you're going to want a stretchy fabric, so you're going to want stretchy fabric. This is a knit fabric, and it's snakeskin. I think I got this from Knit Pop online. You're going to need a rotary cutter or some scissors. I like rotary cutter because it's easier to cut. You cut a lot faster that way. You just got to be really careful because it's sharp. Of course, you're going to need your pattern. I'll link my pattern, the pattern that I use, below. And this pattern is Big Noggin Baby from Etsy. I love it. It's just really simple. There's a whole bunch of other bummy patterns, but this is specifically the pattern that we use at Recaptured Values. So, there you go. Basically, it has a waistband, and it has a front and a back, because, you know, the back needs to cover the booty, and then it has leg cuffs. The pattern will actually come when you when you print and cut and tape. This pattern actually comes with it looking like this. It's a one full leg cuff piece. For me, I personally like to cut them in half. You'll just fold it. Don't cut at the tape line, because clearly you can see the tape line isn't exactly in half. That line right there would be the tape line. So once you get it taped together, cut it, fold it in half, and then cut it. And then you'll have two pieces, and you'll just have to cut it on a fold. And you just have to remember. Sometimes you can just write it down so you can remember. See if I got a pen here. That you remember that you need to cut on a fold so that you get the full length leg cuff. We're going to mark that out and put fold there. I just do that because it's easier, because you'll have two pattern pieces and you can cut both out at once. Alright, and it's easier to cut on the fold for me. So we're going to get started. We're going to cut our fabric. Also, I didn't mention cut mat. I get mine from Hobby Lobby. This is the biggest one they got. It's 36 by 24. Self-healing cutting mat. There we go. And you can use your rotary cutter on this, and it's really easy. Okay, so let's get started with our fabric. If you're familiar with fabric, this is very similar to what I talked about in our head wrap video. You have grain line and you have the stretch. So how you find that, we're going to use this side here. How you find that, most of the time your fabric is going to just automatically roll on the grain line. So like where it rolls this way is your grain line. This fabric is a 4-way stretch fabric, so it's going to stretch a little bit both ways. But the main way it's going to stretch is against the grain line. So grain line would be along the rolled edge, and stretch would be against the rolled edge. And so what that means is you fold the fabric over. And if you see here, this is the rolled edge of fabric. So I'm cutting and folding over the rolled edge so that the stretch is going this way, so that when you put the garment on, it stretches around the body. If you do it the other way, it may not fit correctly, and that's when you run into fit issues because you didn't pay attention to the grain line and the stretch. When I first started sewing, that was a big problem for me. I didn't even understand. I didn't even care to pay attention. And I think a lot of new shop owners that taught themselves how to sew sometimes do that. So really easy, rookie mistake. You can fix it. Just make sure you understand stretch and grain line. Okay, moving along. Okay, I have these weights here that I created. They are washers from the home improvement store. I just put like 2 or 3 together. I think it's 3, and this one was 4. And then I just taped them with tape. I mean, it's not the best thing. You could buy weights, but this works for me. All these pattern pieces are going to be cut on a fold. So what I like to do is I like to go ahead and just line them up. Really, it doesn't matter as long as your fold edge is on the fold, which basically means you're not cutting that part. You're not cutting that part off. So I like to put mine to the very edge, make sure that underneath piece, you got that one, so you're not going to cut and it not be on there. So then I just like to place a pattern weight on there. Do the same thing here, and I like to do these pretty close so that all I have to do is cut right in the middle. Okay, and the best part about this is when you have your pattern weights, you can piece it together to where you're using the least amount of fabric and not wasting any, so that you get the most out of your fabric. So here we go. We're going to do that because this piece is bigger, so we're going to wait. If you can see that, I can't cut that on this fold because it's not big enough yet. So we're going to wait to cut the waistband. So then you take your rotary cutter and you basically just cut. This is what I do. It helps me get it done quicker, so I'm not working with a huge piece of fabric trying to cut it all out. And I feel like it's the least amount of scraps, and you get a pretty clean cut when you come back to cut fabric out of this. So I go ahead and cut the top part here and go up and cut my rolled edge. You can see there, that's the rolled edge. And then I just go ahead and make a straight cut all the way down. And so now I have a straight edge for when I want to roll or do the fabric again. When I want to come back and cut fabric, I already have a straight edge. I don't have to worry about weird cuts. And so I'm not going to really waste that much fabric. Alright, so now you just start cutting. I'm going to put another weight here just to hold that piece down. So you just start cutting, and you cut your curves. Be really careful not to cut the paper, and don't cut your fingers. So you're just going to cut around. And as you notice, I cut on the fold. So this part right here is folded. So when we open up this piece, it's going to be double. It's going to be one big piece. Okay. And cut that off. That piece comes off. And cut this piece here. And be really careful until you get really, really comfortable cutting. You might not want to put them so close together because you might like cut down into it and it cause some cuts in the pieces. So you can spread them out while you're learning. It's easier that way. And then I just have a trash can over here that I keep my scraps, those little tiny scraps in. When you have a big piece of scraps, it's kind of smart to keep a box or something, because you can watch our piggy video on how we did piggy sets, and that's a great way to utilize some scraps that are big. None of these scraps, if you do it correctly, are really going to be able to be utilized in something like that, but you never know. Some people do the jeans, fabric through the jeans. I mean, you could use little scraps for that, like on holes. So we're going to move that over, and let's finish these leg cuffs here. Cut those out, and I just cut out the edges. Again, be really careful. I hold my cutter like this. It's just easier. I'm not pressing hard. If you press too hard, you will break your blade, and it's not fun. It's actually kind of scary. So then you're just going to do one line through here. One line through. All right. So we're going to open this up, and you'll get to see. There's the back piece. See how we cut it on the fold and it opened up to one piece. There's the front piece right here. And I'll go ahead and already lay them right sides together so it's super easy to sew. You're just going to lay them right sides together, line up the edges, make sure they're all nice and pretty. The best part about double brush polyester is it kind of sticks to itself, so it doesn't shift a lot when you're sewing it. So I don't really have to use pins, but definitely if you're a beginner and you need the extra comfort, pin it so it doesn't move. And then this, and I'm going to show you guys my trick to sewing cuffs. When you sew a cuff, typically the pattern is going to call for you to do this, fold it in half, sew it, and then fold it again. You can actually just go ahead and fold it. So like this is the cuff part, this is the leg hole part. Your leg's going to go through this. So you're going to want to fold it in half. Remember, this is the stretch part. Fold it in half, which is what we did. We cut it on the fold. And then go ahead and just fold it over this way. And so that all you have to do is zigzag stitch or serge this tiny little part here, and you fold it and the cuff's already gone. It's already ready to go. And all you have to do is mark this side and pin it to this. So I'll show you that in a second. So moving on to the waistband, you do the same thing with this one here, fold it over, and you just sew that tiny seam, and that's all you gotta do. Okay, so let's do this waistband real fast. Go ahead and pull pull the waistband. And the one I'm doing is a size 18 to 24 months. Just for reference. Okay, so we're gonna fold it, and this fold needs to be a little bit wider, remember, because this piece is a little bit longer. All right, let me pull this fabric back so you guys can see it. All right, so remember the rolled edge, still keeping the same thing. And just in case I cut a little, no, it's fine, okay. So we're gonna put the folded edge down. Again, it really doesn't matter as long as you put a edge and don't cut it. But I mean, if you want to just follow the pattern pieces, when it's a rectangle like this, it doesn't really matter which side you use. Just make sure that you don't cut that fold. Okay, so go down here like this, cut that waistband. And the best part about the waistband is it also is just a cuff. It's a waistband cuff. So you can do the same trick on this one as we did earlier. And I like to cut these little random pieces off so that they're not in my fabric. Okay, so now we're done with that fabric. You can fold it up, do whatever you want to do. Sometimes it's cool to keep a laundry basket as you're doing stuff really fast and just throw in the pieces and then have a fold day where you just fold it and put it back. Okay, so this is the fold part. This is how it would actually open up. That's the waistband piece. I believe the pattern actually calls for you to do it like this and then just sew that long seam and then fold it. So again, this is a trick that I learned that has been life-saving because it gives you a nice clean seam. Fold it right here. And then again, you're just going to sew this seam here and you'll be able to fold it, and this seam's already done and it's already folded for you. So, all right, let's move over here to our sewing machine. I have an overlocker. You can use a zigzag stitch as well. Just make sure you're using whichever stretch stitch is best for your machine. You'll have to look that up. I use an overlocker, so that's what I'm going to use today. Like I said, we already cut it on the fold, so it already did that for us. And then you're going to fold it in half. Again, this way. So you fold it in half one way, and then you fold it in half the other way, and then you're just going to sew this sandwich edge where your raw ends together. And that's the folded edge. Okay. So, what I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get that set up with all of my pieces here. So, all of the cuffs, which is the 2 leg cuffs and the waistband cuff. Go ahead and sandwich those together. And of course, I did that with the waistband as well. It's already folded. Okay. So, then also, like I said earlier, the actual bummies, you're going to sew this seam all the way down, and then the bottom seam, the crotch seam. So, okay. I'm going to show you guys what my settings are. That's the main question we get is like, what is your settings for your serger? I just played around with it until I figured out what I liked. This is currently what works for me with the double brush poly. Some people say their machine eats it. My machine's just fine. I mean, I've never serviced it. I don't even think, honestly, I've oiled it, which I know, what am I doing? But, okay, here you go. This is what I do. This is my settings. Yeah, see? It's so dusty. There we go. That's my settings here. Let me move this so you can see. That's those settings. Alright, so I normally put this one on 3, this one on 3. This one's normally a little bit above 3, like the line part. Just because it makes it a little bit more uniform for my taste. That's just what I do. Okay, so, and you can see I'm using this bone color thread. Got it from Joann's. Let me go ahead and fix this. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start. Basically what you do with this is you're just going to put it in there underneath that, drop your foot, and sew it. Like I said, remember we're sewing the edges that we folded together. Not the actual folded edge, but the edge we folded together. So, turn this on. And again, my light blue, I said this the other day in a video, I haven't fixed it yet, so it's lightless right now. And then we're going to do the next one here. I just like to get my cuffs out of the way. And the best part about it is you can just keep your chain and you don't have to cut it till the very end. So, keep pulling it. far as seam allowance goes, I just like to cut my tails here. Cut them. They're going to be sewn into this, so it's not going to really matter. You don't have to cut them too close because it can unravel. So I just cut them. Cut your tails on your cuffs because, like I said, they're going to be sewn into the garment. So those tails really aren't going to matter as much. So here's what I do that might be a little different. Let me go ahead and turn it here so you can see. I do is I go ahead and mark. That's going to be the next most asked question is how do you sew on a cuff or a waistband and like make it perfect without being wavy. So this is the seam we just cut here, or the seam we just sewed. Seam here, and see how beautiful it is. It's like, don't look at that. That's my seam, both sides of the seam. That's what I do. So okay, so this edge, this folded part here, I like to go ahead and make a tiny little snip. Let's see if we can see a tiny little snip just to mark it so I can see it. It's a tiny little snip. Okay, don't snip it too long or you won't be able to cover it up when you do the seam. But see, then you're going to flip it out. Flip it over and you're going to meet up those little snip pieces that you just did here. Match them up. And then try to make it even all the way around. And then in order to get the perfect waistband, as far as just what you can possibly do without setting your machine differently, is then you match up this back seam. Oh, it's getting blurry. It's still blurry. This back seam here with the cut part that you just snipped right here. You match that up, hold that, and then you're gonna snip the side here, and then you're gonna snip the side here. So you have 4 points that you can match. And you just do this part with the waistband. I'm really gonna do 1 snip on the cuffs. So let's see here. On the leg cuffs. So that's a waistband. It's ready to go whenever we get the bummy main part done. Okay, so let's set this to the side, and we've already seamed our cuffs here. So basically you're gonna just take this edge and do tiny little snips here. This just makes it easier to mark it up until you get the same amount of fabric on the whole side of the cuff. Tiny little snips. Again, don't snip too much, just snip enough to where that you can see it's different. Okay, so you fold these over. Over. Set it to the side, match up your snipped points so that you have it evenly. Match up the snip points. And you got that perfect cuff here. Alright, so there we go. There's a perfect cuff. So now we're going to do this right here. We're going to sew down the side. Alright, and then you have to cut these off or you can't finish doing it. And you're going to do the bottom part here. Make sure you got your seams lined up because again, good thing about double rush polyester again is it doesn't really shift that much, so you don't have to really worry about it too much. Now I just cut my tails here again because these are going to be sewn into a seam. So we got one final one here that we're going to cut, or that we're going to sew. So I'll just go ahead and make sure both pieces are under there. Alright, so basically we have 4 points on our waistband that we're going to meet. So I like to make 4 points. We already have 2 because the side seams are even. So I match up the side seams. This is the Bummies inside out. The back, the front. So match your side seams up like this. Hold them together and make a tiny little snip. This is them sideways. Make a tiny little snip in the back and a tiny little snip in the front here. And that's the point you're going to use to match up the waistband to get it perfect. Okay. And this is when pins would definitely come in handy. All right, so I'm gonna fold it out. This is what I like to do. I like to apply my waistbands. Let's see here if I get closer. I like to do my waistbands with the fabric right side out. So let's go ahead, grab our pins. I just use normal pins. I don't really like these kind of straight pins. So we're gonna get so I like to do is put the seam, the waist seam in the back. It's just what I like to do. You can put it on the side, whatever. I like to put it on the back because it to me it denotes that it's the back with the seam in the back. So flip these over to where you're on the back. This is the back. This is the front. Okay. So hopefully you can see me. Hopefully. There we go. Goodness. This thing is kind of going crazy here. Sorry. All right. So here we have the seam, the back seam. And so we have just the back piece here. So you're going to kind of move that front piece out of the way so that it's just the back. The front piece is down here. It's just the back seam. So you're going to put it like this. You can kind of see me here, hopefully. It's a little confusing. And then you're just going to pin the seam to the point that you snipped. If you can kind of see it. Let's see. This is the snip piece. That's the seam. This is the inside. And these are right sides together. Okay, so then you're going to come around here. Why is it so blurry? Come around. And you got a side seam. So you're going to match it up to your next cut snipped point right here. Make sure that your seams are even. And you're going to put it right here. And you're going to put another pin right here. So we have 4 pins total. So I'm going to do it again on the front part here. Again, you're taking the cut part from the waistband and matching it up to the cut part from your actual bummy. Alright. Pin that together. And I just pin it like this just to keep it on there. You're going to have to remove the pin as you sew because if you're using an overlocker, it will like cut your needle off and that dulls your blade quicker than anything. So we're going to do the same thing with the final side here. And then I'll show you what this looks like at the end. So hopefully if you're confused at this point, you can hopefully not be confused. Alright, so that's the front of the bummies. That's the front of the bummies. It's the back of the bummies. I basically have just cuffed the waistband around that. And so it's all raw sides. This is the folded side. This is the folded side. And these are the raw sides. So the raw edges are all now right here. And I'm about to sew around them to make the waistband seam. So I showed you guys my settings and they work for the waistband. So when you see wavy stuff, try to set your settings to this because this is what I use and it doesn't give me wavy waistbands. So we'll go ahead and get started. So again, make sure that your seam or that your edges are all lined up because if not, then you'll have pieces that aren't sewn. Take your pin out before you start sewing and sew. And you gotta be careful because you're sewing in around. You're sewing around the waistband. So make sure your other fabric is out and not underneath the thing or you'll get your fabric underneath the sewing machine. So keep sewing. And then you get to the next pin, take it out, keep sewing. Next pin, take it out, and then here's our last stretch here. Alright, and I like to pull my tail, my serger tail out so that it gets cut off. And you're just going to go over, try to keep in line right here. And then I cut as close as possible. That's what it looks like. That's where I went over what I'd already done. And I don't ever tuck my tails on these. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of thread that comes out like this. This is a tiny piece of thread that comes out. I haven't had any issues washing it and it messing up, but all you have to do is if you have a sewing machine or if you don't know how to tuck your tails with a little tool that you can cut your tail and then tuck it in. If you don't know how to do that or you don't have the tool, all you have to do is go to your sewing machine if you have one and then just zigzag over that area there a few times and it'll lock that stitch. Okay, so we are now going to flip this out. So there's our waistband that we put on our bummies. It is even all the way around. You can see even, well, it's blurry now. It's even all the way around. Even. All right, so now we're going to do leg cuffs. What I've noticed is when you do this, it doesn't matter how perfect you are. When you sew these seams together on the bummies, but this side seam right here is always pointy. If you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. This part, it doesn't matter how perfect you do it, it's always pointy. So what I like to do is I like to come over here with my scissors and just straighten it up. So I cut that point off. Cut it off. That's what I do. And so it kind of makes it not as pointy. And again, you see that kind of point right there, you can cut that off too. Just be careful, don't keep cutting. Just try to make it straight across. It'll make it a lot easier. Do the same thing with the other side here. It just makes it easier for me. Again, this is just how we do ours, so don't, take everything with a grain of salt. That'd be great. Alright, so cut that piece off, and that makes it straight across. So, cuffs. Again, I like to apply all my cuffs. I think it's backwards than what most people or what most patterns call for, but it's just easier for me to be able to see what I'm doing. So, I do like this. So I'm going to take these cuffs. We had our leg cuffs here. We already got them marked. Here we only need 2 points. So let me grab my pins again. So we need 4 pins because you're only marking 2 on each leg. So that's 4. So let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So you have a decision to make on where you want your seams to go on your legs. Some people like them like on the inner leg where the crotch part is, or you can have them on the outer leg. It just really depends on your preference. What do you like? I like to put mine on the outer leg just because I feel like if they're on the inner leg, it just may rub the wrong way and cause irritation. So I just put them on the outside. So let's go ahead and get started. So here's our seam. This is our seam here. Let me see it. Seam. We'll take our seam. And again, this is the fabric is right side out. So you're going to take your side seam here. This is the crotch part. Alright, so I'm going to take one leg. I like to put my arm or hand through it like this, the waist. And then you're going to take this side seam here and match it up with your cuff on the outside of it. So match up your seam and pin it. Alright, so you're going to come down here to the crotch seam and grab that part. That's the crotch seam part. And you're going to take the tiny little cut piece right here, just a little snipped, and you match it up to that seam, the crotch seam part, and you're going to pin it. Alright, so there we go. We have a cuff attached to the outside. Raw edges together. And this side, you can see that this part is just naturally falls down because this curve is deeper. So I like to start, we're going to do this one cuff first. Let me take these pins out of my mouth so you can hear me. We're going to do this one cuff first. So basically, the back side is going to be perfect. It's going to line up perfectly. You're not going to have to stretch it much at all because it's exactly the length you need it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that. Just like we did the waistband. Make sure you're removing your pins once you get to them. Alright, so I'm to this pin here. If you can see it right here. I'm to the pin. Let me come over here. To this pin, so I'm going to remove this pin. I'm going to pull this fabric down. And this is where it gets important so that you use your fingers and stretch the inside piece so that it's straight with your edges. So if you can see here, I've stretched this piece that wasn't really with the curve here. This is the cuff. and this is the inside curve piece. This is the front of the bummy. That the curve is a little deeper so that it accounts for the legs, and the curve on the back is a little bit lower because it accounts for the butt. So you're gonna have to stretch this front leg piece, the actual bummy part, not the cuff. You're gonna have to stretch that and hold it to make sure that it creates the right seam you want. Don't stretch the cuff, just stretch the piece of fabric, the bummy fabric, to match the cuff. Because if you stretch too much, that's when you get wavy seams. You don't want to stretch it too much. So we're almost to the edge here. I just removed the pin. Again, I sew over I pull the tail out and I sew over it. So this one's not as pretty, so you can see here. This is that was the seam. That's the crotch seam there. And then this is the seam where I sewed over my original seam. And again, this seam right here, I've never had any issues with it coming unraveled and really causing that many issues. So you can tuck your tail. You can get the little tool and not cut your tail so short, and then just cut, and you know what I'm saying. You could tuck your tail, or you can go ahead and go to your sewing machine and zigzag stitch over that. So then we're going to flip our cuff out. And there is our first leg cuff. So I'm going to fold it out so you guys can see what it looks like now. And we have our leg cuff. Let's see here. This is a little easier for you guys to see. We have a leg cuff here. Perfectly sewn leg cuff. And then we just need to do this one. We got to put this one on. So we do exactly the same way. I'm going to do it kind of fast here because I've kind of already explained it. But you guys can see me do it just so for another example. So try to do it on your own. And here I go. I'm going to do this next one. Again, I like to put my side seams on, or I like to put the seams of the cuffs on the sides instead of the insides. Here we go. Go to the side seam, match it up, pin it. The crotch seam, match it up to the part that I snipped, and pin it. Make sure everything's still good and not twisted. Alright. Now we have our other cuff on there. Again, this is what I was talking about with the inside of the leg. See how it naturally, you'll have to stretch it a little bit to make it fit. Because again, the back curve accounts for the booty, and the front, it raises up a little bit to show some legs. So I like to start on the back seam because it matches up perfectly. So whichever seam matches up perfectly, I start on that because it's really easy to go ahead and get that done. Get to that pin, remove it, and here we go. We're going to stretch the fabric again. Remember, don't stretch too much, you'll get a wavy seam. Stretch it just enough so that the bummy leg curve matches up with the leg cuff. All right. Just let it do its work. All right, to this pin here, remove it, pull your tail out. Right over it, snip it, and then like I said, you can go to your sewing machine. That's probably what I'm going to do. I'm not going to show that, but all you have to do is zigzag over the spot where you just cut your tail off. Typically it's going to have some little pieces of thread like that. So there you go. There's our bummies. And let's go ahead and put them like this. And you can see how they're just perfectly sewn. Now, and our side seams are right here. Side seam, perfect side seam there. Perfect side seam. Perfect side seam, matches up perfectly. And we have our back seam for the waistband. And there's the bummies right there. See if you can see them like this. And there we go. There Bummies. And so what you can do, what some people do, is you can go ahead and do a zigzag stitch here to put your seam down if you want to, just to make it more uniform. I don't do that just because the leg cuffs are long enough. You don't have to do that. It's basically up to you. You can do whatever you want to do. But like I said, some people just go and do like a zigzag stitch or even like a long straight stitch here to keep your seam down, your serger seam. It really doesn't matter. You do what you want to do, but that's how you sew bummies. High waist bummies, and I'll link the pattern below. They're super cute, super cute. You see the perfect waist, cuffs, back part here. Like I said, this is the 18 to 24 month size, just for size reference. Of course, the 0 to 3 months is going to be a lot more smaller than this and a little bit more hard to sew. So I just went ahead and picked a smaller size, or a bigger size, so it's a little easier to show you guys what it looks like. The smaller you go, the harder it is to do the cuffs, just because they're smaller. But don't let that intimidate you. Also, I guess we love being tagged in photos. So if you're working using our tutorial, definitely tag us. We would love to see what you're doing and give you some encouragement and or feedback if you want feedback on how to do it differently or whatever. We're all about small shops and seeing small shops flourish. We are a small business ourselves, and we sell most of the stuff we are showing you in the tutorials, and we're just trying to give back to the community because being a small shop has changed our life, and we want to be able to provide tutorials to let other people flourish exactly like we are. There's room for everybody to grow. This world is a big world, and we all have room. We all have a place in this world. So do you, boo. We are rooting for you. Recaptured Values is rooting for you, whether you're a mom sewing for your child, or whether you're a small shop trying to make it in this world, or whether you're a huge shop using our tutorials. We don't really, we love you. We love you and we support you, and we're here to encourage you. So definitely tag us in photos. Comment down below with any ideas that you guys have or any struggles that you guys face that you want us to either talk about or do a tutorial about. We'll be all there for you. And also make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the video, please, and subscribe so that you guys can stay updated with the videos that we put out. It's a lot easier for you guys to see and be notified when we post new videos. So definitely subscribe. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers. So let's keep it going, and let us know what you want to see next. Thanks for watching.